What do you do when you are a sperm donor turned baby daddy? Well, we've got the latest here. We've got Brett Farley revealing his untold details of his viral TikTok paternity fraud story. And listen, I gotta say, this is quite the interesting story, only because, it's one thing to get caught up in paternity fraud, just as someone who's dating, right? Like if you're doing like these one night stands and you're having casual intercourse, yeah, you might get caught up in some shit like this. But it's a whole nother story when you are, a person approaches you in a what one would say is like a calm manner, something normal people would do, and then spin something like this. Now, I read through it briefly. We're going to be paraphrasing a lot of this, and we'll also be playing the videos, but this is wild in my opinion. So anyway, let's start here at the beginning. So Brett Harley, just a normal 24-year-old dude, minding his business, living his life, just whatever. He was at a party when he stumbled onto Maria Nguyen at her birthday party, so he knew her beforehand. Quote, "It was really just me being 24. I'm drunk and I'm going home with someone tonight." That's what he said of their initial one-night stand. Now, as time went on, of course, fast forward a couple months, Maria then texts Brett out of nowhere asking him to be a sperm donor. Now, if you ask me personally, this is where I immediately say, hold the fuck on. This is where I say, hold the fuck on. Why are you asking me to be a sperm donor if we only smashed once? I don't know, that gives me red flag vibes, but for some reason, he decided it is what it is. I don't know why, but it is what it is. You let me know in the comments what you would do, though. I know some of y'all out here, though, will be so down bad. Y'all are into that breeding stuff, so y'all would probably do this. But anyway, so Maria texts Brett out of nowhere asking him to be a sperm donor, not because they were in a relationship, and they weren't, or because they were close friends, and they weren't that either, but because she told him she's been single forever and all her friends were having kids. Now, again, I don't know why he would go ahead and decide and say, yeah, you know what? This is a good fucking idea. Let me go ahead and do this. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and play one of these videos from this goofy ass motherfucker doing some dumb shit like this.
I'm probably going to jail for this. I don't care. I've stayed quiet long enough. A few years ago, I agreed to be a sperm donor. She said she just wanted the baby and not a relationship. I was young and naive, and I trusted someone that I shouldn't have. When she told me she was pregnant, I congratulated her and moved to California. I thought that was the end of it. But then she started messaging my mom. She said she had no one and she pressured us all to be at the birth. So we did. We were all at the birth. I signed the birth certificate and I decided to be in the baby's life as a dad. I let her and the baby live in my Airbnb for free. I had to pay child support and she took over $52,000 from me. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was being a dad. She started asking me to be a family, and when I refused, she called me a deadbeat online, and I stayed silent throughout it all. 2.5 years later, I decided to take 2 DNA tests. Both of them said the same thing. I was not the father. When I shared the results, she said that I was lying and that we tampered with the test.
Before you all start believing his shit, some company with her DNA, that could have been anyone's DNA.
She filed a restraining order. A judge silenced me and made me remove all my posts, based on Maria's claim that I was actually the father. Here is the court order DNA test that I had to request, and it confirmed again I am not the father. And while I was silent, she kept going. She was changing dates on photos, spinning stories, manipulating people online. Some people believed her, but while she was doing that, I was uncovering the truth. Connections, manipulations, lies, and the truth about who the real father is. This is just the beginning of Maria's web of lies.
Now, ain't that some shit? Ain't that some shit? Now, again, I don't know why someone would go ahead and say, you know what? Let me go ahead and do this for you. Like, if I'm not close with you and we're not in a relationship and this was just a casual encounter, first of all, why do you still have my number? That's number one. I don't know why. Fellas, let me put you on to some game, please. Unless it's like an online, matter of fact, fuck that. Even considering an online interaction, your number should never be a part of this equation. Like if you're meeting in person and this casual encounter escalates and moves forward, then you end up at your place or her place, whatever the case may be, respectively, and with consensual consent, right? I say consensual consent, but you know what I mean, with consent, right? Provided all those things happen, under no circumstances are you required to then leave your personal contact, unless you so personally choose to do that. Now, again, me personally speaking, if I know it's a one night stand and, I'm gonna just be there to be there, like I'm here for a good time, not a long time, why would I leave my number? And same thing with online. Like, if you're gonna be meeting women online and you're gonna be interacting on social dating platforms, the smartest thing, in my personal opinion, you should be doing is not interacting with them with your phone number until you have met this person and you feel as though you are confident enough in your due diligence to actually vet this person. Because we all have heard the horror stories of people getting done up by women online, you know what I mean? So like, that's not the way to go about it. Like, I wouldn't just randomly give my number. And also, I'll put y'all onto some extra game. Y'all gonna have to pay me for this one, but let me put you onto some extra game. When it comes to your address, I don't mean this to be malicious. I'm not saying do this out of malicious intent, but what I'm saying is it's always better to give them a different address. Maybe not so much in your immediate proximity, right? Maybe like 3-4 houses down, and like give clear instruction like, hey, before you end up on the doorstep, because you're going on a stranger's doorstep, but before you end up on the doorstep, send me a text or give me a call. And then listen, from that point, you can just go ahead and tell her like, hey, yeah, I'm actually down the block. And that's not any offense to her. You're just protecting yourself. Like, what if it was a fucking setup? Now you just got a whole squad in front of your house with 2 9s and it's a wrap for you. You got some 5.56s flying through your door. It's over. So do yourself a favor and play the game a little bit. But anyway, let's continue, gentlemen. So here we go. We got Brett. I'm just gonna go ahead and take my head out the way, but we got this gentleman, Brett, over here who, decided he wanted to be a good fucking Samaritan by donating some nut. But anyway, so, quote, I felt like I was doing something nice for somebody. See, Brett, that's your first motherfucking mistake. I don't know why the fuck you think you'd be wanting to do something nice for someone like that. Anyway, that doesn't make any fucking sense. But anyway, Brett admits, like, if someone asked you nicely for like, hey, can I borrow $20? I was like, yeah. Except this 20 favor involved unprotected sex, 2 weekends in a row, and the eventual news that Maria was pregnant, an event that prompted Brett's sarcastic but now prophetic reaction. Sick. Congrats. Yo, again, I don't know why you would do this. Like, why, brother? Why would you assume this is a good idea? I can't for the life of me sit here and think of a rational reason as to like, you know what? Maybe I did want a nut in this chick. But for what reason? Like, what do you get out of that? Like, yeah, sure, you spawned or sired a child that may or may not be yours, right? Like, and you may not have to take care of it. Okay, whoop-de-doo. But like, at the same time, I don't know. That's just weird, man. That's weird, fam. Anyway, so from dad to donor without consent. That's crazy, dog. So what followed was slow but deliberate invasions of Brett's life. Quote, it felt like the stranger was trying to hijack my life, he tells Lucy. Maria started inserting herself into Brett's world, friending his family on Facebook, cozying up to his mother, and spinning a narrative that they were a happy little couple expecting a child together. She even asked Brett's mom to take care of the baby if anything ever happened to her. It was like someone doing identity fraud, but socially. Yo, that's wild. That's crazy. But anyway, despite the initial agreement that he wouldn't be involved beyond the donation, Brett's parents pushed him to reconsider. They said a little girl is going to grow up without a dad, he recalls. That guilt tripped him into flying home for the birth and eventually signing the birth certificate and an acknowledgement of paternity form that made him legally responsible, a decision he now calls his biggest mistake. You dumb motherfucker. Why would you do that? Sorry, I got the volume off.
Period. And then accidentally exposed herself on TikTok 3 years later. May 7th, 2021, Maria gets her birth control arm implant out. She's from my hometown and she was living in New Orleans at the time, so she could only be here on the weekends. So she came in town the next 2 weekends, May 14th and May 21st. We partied with my friends, she stayed over, she had someone take these pictures, and then later tried to use them to prove we were in a relationship. We weren't. What was I supposed to say? Don't take a picture with me? And then I went to California. While I'm there, I posed with another girl, Whitney. She's only a friend, but Maria didn't know that. Maybe she got jealous, I don't know, but what she did next will never cease to amaze me. On June 6, 2021, Maria gets her period. She knows I didn't get her pregnant, and she also knows I'm about to move across the country. So she invites me to brunch, and she tells me she's pregnant, fully knowing that she's not. Then she starts drinking, like a lot. We then leave and go to another restaurant and meet up with my friend Dylan, and she also tells him that she's pregnant. Dylan and I think it's weird that she's drinking, but she insists it's okay. Here's the proof that this video is on June 6th.
Fuck this place, move to California.
Like, hey, you didn't get a lemon in you.
Oh, fuck, wrong way.
This video is dumb, but it shows two things. Maria was drinking, and I made it very clear that I was leaving. And that's important because that brunch, that's the last time I ever saw her until the week before the baby was born. Here's how we found out that she was on her period when she told me she was pregnant. Here's a photo she posted to TikTok to try to prove we were in a relationship. She changed the dates on the photos, but we'll get into that later. And then she posted this one. I then tell my girlfriend, who's a nurse, that she took that photo the day that she told me she was pregnant. And Hadley's like, hold up. There's no way. Let me see that ultrasound photo again. So we pull up the ultrasound that she sent my mom. The ultrasound was done on January 17th, 2022, and it showed that she was 32 weeks and 1 day. I've since learned that pregnancy is calculated from the first day of a woman's last menstrual period. And if we count back 32 weeks and 1 day from January 17th, 2022, we get June 6th, 2021, the day she told me she was pregnant. And we didn't sleep together that day either. Since she never saw me after that, that means that she knew from the beginning that I was never the father. Furthermore, here's proof that I'm in California the only weekend that she could have gotten pregnant. She trapped me before there was even a baby. And the crazy part, we probably would have never found out if she wouldn't have posted the photos. She exposed her own lie, and it only gets crazier from here.
What a story. That is incredible. I mean, listen, I'm not even like 3/4 of the way through the written part. And there's more videos, but that is wild, man. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I can totally understand the wanting or the empathy one might have for wanting to take care of a child, but yo, you have to be smart about these things. Like, you can't go out of your way to then say, okay, I'm gonna do something that's what I would deem somewhat irrational, right? Like, go ahead and sire a child because this woman just asked you nicely. Like, first of all, that's a dumb way to think to begin with. But, you know, you got to be smart about this kind of shit, gentlemen. Like, yo, I hope none of y'all are trying to be like this guy, because this was a dumb idea that he could have avoided by simply saying no. But, you know, he wanted to smash. This is what happens when you think with your small head and not your real head. Think, man, for real. So what followed was a slow but deliberate invasion into Brett's life. So, like he said it felt like a stranger. Now, despite the initial agreement that he wouldn't be involved beyond the donation, Brett's parents pushed him to reconsider. That we already covered. From there, things spiraled. Maria stayed in Brett's Airbnb for free, costing him roughly $30,000 in lost income, while also demanding thousands more in child support. He wired her $10,000 upfront and paid a $750 a month, even as he excuse me. He wired her $10,000 upfront and paid $750 a month, even as she berated him over text. I hope you die was quite the winner, apparently, from a text that she had sent him, and tried to gatekeep access to the baby depending on his compliance. She was withholding the baby and using her as a pawn, Brett says, which is, again, insane. It was textbook manipulation, and Brett, admittedly and naively and eagerly wanting to do the right thing, kept falling into the trap. Hold up, they got me in TikTok. Nah, we ain't playing on TikTok. Sorry, we're gonna play it on the we're gonna play it here.
Baby that I was only supposed to be a sperm donor for. July 12th, 2021, she confirms that she's actually pregnant. We only found that out later when she started posting on TikTok, but at that time she kept quiet. From July 22nd through July 26th, I was with my friend Whitney. She met my mom and she posted it on Facebook. Maria didn't know she was just a friend, and based on what happened next, I think she got jealous. Because not long after, Maria starts messaging my mom.
Hello.
Hey mama.
The night, I guess that we first met, I guess was that night at the house show. One of the first things after we introduced ourselves and sat down, I can remember her saying to me that she hoped that I didn't think that she took advantage of my son. And of course I gave a polite answer to that. She went on to discuss, and she mentioned, how I guess she was impressed with you to be so young and so successful at that age. I can remember her mentioning your house and all your toys.
From that point on, Maria started pulling my mom in deeper. She would ask for baby pictures of me, and she told her mom that baby's gonna look just like me. She made my mom feel important and needed, and when Maria told her that she had no one, my mom felt pressured to come to the birth.
She told me if something ever happens to her, I want you to raise the baby. And I just remember thinking, this little girl has no one.
By then, my family was in, they were planning to be at the birth, and I was about to be too. My mom tells me that Maria told her she has no one coming to the birth, no family, no support. She's scared and she really wants me to be there. So I booked the flight on February 23rd, 2022, and it's $677. And I sent Maria the screenshot. By this time, Maria has already had 2 separate baby showers and never posted anything about it. Not one bump photo, nothing. And then a few hours after I booked my ticket, and on the same day that I sent her the screenshot confirming I was going to be at the birth. And at 8.5 months pregnant, that is the first time she ever posts that she's pregnant. And she uses my last name. She waited until I was fully in, and then she told the world. She didn't just lie, she made sure the lie had backup. The day the baby was born, I was there, and I was the first person to ever hold the baby. And I just remember thinking, this is what it feels like to become a dad. I didn't care about anything else in that moment. My parents are there posting about how they're grandparents again. And then the nurse comes in and she brings in the forms for the birth certificate and the acknowledgement of paternity. I signed everything because I thought the baby was mine, and Maria knew I would. After the birth, she scheduled a full-blown newborn photo shoot. She posed me holding the baby and they would jump in the photos. She had my dog in the photos too, and had already ordered a bandana that said Big Brother. She shared the photos online, but I had no idea because I was already blocked on Facebook. She was posting pictures of me and the baby, making it look like we were this perfect little family. And while I'm across the country, she's messaging my childhood friends. She's asking my best friend Dylan and his girlfriend Megan to babysit, and they do. She starts asking my friends and family if they want to be the godparents. She didn't just ask 1 or 2 people, she told multiple friends they might be chosen. Literally, this is what my brother posted of me, the baby, and my friends. He joked, the godparents who didn't make the cut. And Maria liked the picture. At first, she kept things peaceful and calm. It's like she didn't want to risk pushing me away too fast. Once I was settled into this nice little world she created for me, that's when she started to tighten her grip. And that's when the real abuse begins. Part 5 coming tonight.
What do you get when you mix crazy with obsessive and just utterly naive? You get this. First of all, I'm going to be completely honest here. The mom's a dummy. I'm gonna be dead ass. The mom is a fucking dummy. And the reason why I say that, not for, malicious intent or anything of that nature, but I say she's a dummy simply because how could you actually go along with this? Like, how could you actually think this woman was dead ass? Honest, for real? I don't know. Maybe it's just my own personal nature and just how I think about things, but I would not give this woman the benefit of the doubt like that. Like, yo, until I see DNA tests confirming that this kid is mine, I want no qualms about this. I mean, like, yes, obviously there's an obvious there, like, oh, he's the sperm donor, of course. But still, at the same time, like, just because you think you get someone pregnant does not mean you're the fucking dad. And let's be completely honest here. If we're really talking about how this shit goes down, your soldiers could be mixed in with other soldiers, and your soldiers might get smoked. It might not even make it to the trophy. It might even get the cup. It may not even get the cup. So at this rate, it could be anybody's. It's a free for all in there. Especially if she's the type of to bounce around. Yeah, it's gonna be fucking Royal Rumble, ladies and gentlemen. But, you know, let's get back to this because the story's not over. In fact, it only gets worse from here. So let's continue. So we talked about the nurse and coming in and, you know, doing the thing with the baby, whatever the case may be, him signing the papers, whatever. And then we talked about Maria staying in the Airbnb, getting him, you know, costing him $30,000 fucking dollars. But there's more to this. So the plot twist came when Hadley, Brett's now girlfriend and a hospice nurse with a sharp mind, realized something was off, right? The baby's birth date didn't line up with Brett's timeline, and after crunching some of the numbers, she asked where he'd been during the conception window, and he wasn't even in the same state. So 2 paternity tests later, confirming a 0% match, Brett's world simultaneously imploded and clarified. Quote, "I didn't believe it," he says. "I thought I was reading it wrong. Then I called my mom crying." And you know, personally speaking, I think that's the right move. Again, making sure the baby is tested because you want to ensure that that kid is yours. Because again, there's been a lot of dudes who have been caught up talking about, oh, you know, this woman said I got her pregnant, so I was taking care of the baby. And then 30, 40 years down the line, they find out the kid's not even theirs. Bro, that's an L. That's a massive L. I don't know. Couldn't be me. Listen, I would have my stipulations, and you know, personally speaking, I would always ensure that this kid was in fact mine. Like, there's no way you're gonna catch me with the, oh, you know, shot up my club, so now you gotta take care of this kid. Nah, I'm gonna need to see some real factual, actual papers stating that this kid has my French Haitian DNA. He's got my blood running, or him or her, whatever, has my blood running through her or them, whatever the fuck. That kid better be mine, DNA wise, better be mine. That's all I'm saying. So now we have this guy grieving a daughter that was never his. So this wasn't just about being duped. It was about grieving a daughter he loved deeply, one who called him Dada, and who he held in his arms first at the hospital. Quote, "I lost so many firsts I'll never get back," he says. "It's something no parent should ever have to go through." Personally, the fact that he's calling himself a parent is fucking insane. The kid's not even yours, so I don't know why you're trying to run with that title, but hey, whatever. So Brett made the agonizing choice to cut ties for his emotional safety, and for the child's too. "She was only 2.5. She probably won't remember me," unquote, he says quietly, "but I'll never forget her." And that's some sad shit to say, but again, the kid ain't yours, so I don't know why you're complaining.
But his girlfriend's a little mastermind.
Those nurses who built giant platforms on TikTok from being such amazing, kind people, they were narcissists too. Specifically, Hadley.
Girlfriend, who was a nurse, tampered with the test result. Nurse Hadley lost custody of all her children.
Okay, I want to take a moment to address the people saying I'm a clout chaser for addressing this again. This became an entirely different battle for me when they attacked Hadley. When I originally shared my story to clear my name, Maria, through her cousin, came online and spread horrible lies about Hadley. They said that she lost custody of her kids, that she was a felon, and that she tampered with the DNA test. None of those things are true, but so many people believed it. I watched the person I love cry while strangers made videos about her. They review bombed her book without even reading it, and despite all of that, she still stood by me. So yes, I came with a literal binder of receipts, and I'm going through it in order so they can't twist things again. Because it's one thing to hurt me, but it's a whole other thing when you're attacking the person that I love. Hadley and I met at the gym, and we went on our first date on March 20th, 2024. About a month later, I brought Hadley to lunch with my mom. My mom told us about Maria texting her recently. Maria was saying that I was selfish, that I wasn't allowed to see the baby anymore, and that she didn't want the baby to grow up like me. Hadley said she can't do that, there's a court order. Because Hadley knew the system, she'd already been through it herself. On June 8th, we spent the day with the baby, Hadley's kids, and some close friends. Played cornhole, we went to a birthday party, and even had dinner with friends that night. It was just a good day. But when Maria found out that the baby and I were at Hadley's house, she lost it. She texted my mom saying I don't get to play house with their daughter. It's an interesting choice of words considering how the story ends. Maria demanded that I call her immediately or she's gonna call the police. I had to leave the baby with Hadley and her friend to go to another room so I could calm Maria down. Soon after, I go on a bachelor trip that was planned months in advance. While I'm gone, Maria jumps on Facebook and has a full-blown meltdown. She says I'm absent from the baby's life and that I skipped town on Father's Day. I had just seen the baby a few days ago and already had a flight booked to be back on Father's Day. But reality doesn't stand a chance when Maria opened social media. Her post was public, no matter how many times she claims it was only friends and family. This little globe icon says otherwise. There's no way it was only her 5,000 close friends and family. Hadley saw it, her family saw it, probably half the state saw it. She called me a deadbeat, she said that I put my dick in anything that walks, and accused me of shoving hot dogs down my throat for Instagram likes, which honestly is pretty funny. But the real kicker, she ends it with, "The truth is coming out and I'm not afraid to share it to the public anymore." She's all about freedom of speech until someone else starts talking. Anyways, she doesn't answer my calls or texts on Father's Day, so I don't get to see the baby. I'm not even shocked at this point. On June 20th, we head to the Bahamas for Hadley's brother's wedding. My parents were supposed to keep the baby for the weekend, but at the last moment, Maria asked if she could keep the baby instead. I say, sure, trying to keep the peace. Naturally, 2 seconds later, she's texting my mom. She's saying that I chose my girlfriend over my daughter, and now she's going back to court for full custody. My mom calls her out and says exactly what everybody else is thinking. You've micromanaged his every move, he's never bashed you publicly, and you've wished him dead more than once. And she was right. So it's June, and according to the court order, I'm supposed to have the baby for the whole month. But as usual, Maria was picking and choosing what rules apply. June 25th, this is what her family loves to twist. The infamous Lowe's incident. Here's what actually happened. The night before, on the phone, Maria told me that I could pick the baby up from school in the morning. So I did. We ran some errands, grabbed lunch, and then we went to Lowe's. While I'm there, I text her and ask if I can keep the baby overnight. She calls me immediately. Her response, not thanks, not sure, it's, "Is Hadley with you?" I said yes, and instantly she flips. She says that she's coming to Lowe's right now. I was like, no, you're not gonna make a scene in Lowe's. I'll just drop Hadley off and then I'll bring her back to your house like we planned. I hang up and then I reiterate what I said over the phone through text. I put away my phone while I'm driving. I check my phone when I park at Hadley's house. Apparently, Maria's at Lowe's now. I had multiple missed calls from my dad. I call him back and he tells me that Maria has called him. And apparently, she was running up and down the aisles at Lowe's screaming that her daughter had been kidnapped. Oddly enough, her family doesn't deny this part. They just said that I didn't answer the phone for hours. The drive from Lowe's to Hadley's house is 17 minutes. I called Maria back and she starts making threats. Hadley tells me to hang up and text her because I need this in writing. That enrages Maria, but we'll get back to that soon. Regardless, I brought her back with no issue. On August 5th, Maria lets me see the baby again. A few days later, she comes inside Hadley's house. She meets Hadley's kids, she goes into their bedroom, she even played dolls with one of her daughters for a minute. Then, when she comes back to pick the baby up, all 3 of Hadley's kids are there, standing at the door, waiting by. And this is the same woman that went online and told people that Hadley lost custody of all of her kids. She knew that was a lie. She met the kids and stood in their home. That wasn't confusion, that was strategy. Maria knew that if she could convince people that Hadley was a terrible person, the attention would shift off of her, and the truth wouldn't matter anymore. She wasn't trying to defend herself. She was just trying to take Hadley down because she was helping me. And they hated her for it. They knew she had a platform. They knew that people online love to cancel large creators, so they made her the target, because that was easier than answering for what they had done. On August 10th, I did the first DNA test. That video and the fallout after will be next. But for now, people have said that Maria only shared stuff privately on her Facebook to family and friends. That's just not true. But even if those posts were private, they weren't. Explain this. Maria and her friends were in Hadley's comment section months before I made a video. They were harassing her and spreading lies, trying to bait her into saying something back. Hadley didn't respond, she just deleted it and moved on. Meanwhile, they're in her comments saying that I was behind on child support and that she moved me into her house after only knowing me for 3 months. For the record, none of that is true. But they weren't interested in the facts. They were interested in turning the internet against her before I ever said one word. And I sat there with DNA results in my hand, knowing everything they were saying was a lie. And that's when it really hit me. This wasn't just about controlling me anymore. This was about making sure no one ever believed me. And if they had to ruin Hadley to do that, they didn't care. On October 8th, I finally posted the truth. I shared the DNA results, I told my story, and I kept it factual. And immediately, Maria's cousin Michelle jumped into Hadley's DMs. She said, "You're the problem. Brett was never this confident until you were in his ear. He never questioned anything before you." And there it was. It was never about the DNA test. It was never about co-parenting. They were just angry because I was not easy to control anymore. And Hadley? He was never the villain. They just hated that someone finally gave me the strength to stand up for myself. And what really blows my mind is how many creators took their side. Even after Michelle publicly posted that she ever saw Hadley, it was on site. She wasn't even hiding it. She was threatening violence, admitting to lying, and openly trying to destroy her. And instead of calling that out, these creators amplified it. They didn't ask any questions. They didn't look at any of the facts. They just picked up the pitchfork and joined in. So if you're one of those people who helped them do it, You didn't just get it wrong. You helped abusers keep their power. I'll be waiting for an apology.
What blows my mind is the fact that A, not only he went through this, but B, if you really think about it, he willingly went through this, like, willingly. I mean, I know I just said that, but no, seriously, like, he willingly went through this. All of this could have been avoided if he said no. Like, again, gentlemen, unless you're going to an actual, like, donating clinic, do not be willing to just donate your seed. Like, what sense does this make? I'm really at a loss for words here. Like, who says yes to that? Who's like, okay, you know what? Sure. Let's get this, like, undocumented, but, you know, perpetuously damaging idea to the test. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just so, like, something just doesn't add up here. It just doesn't make any sense. Listen, I understand this guy was the quote-unquote victim, but something just doesn't make any sense here because, again, who just says yes to this? But anyway, we've covered all of that. Let's go ahead and wrap this up, right? So, again, we know that this wasn't just about being duped, and, you know, he had a daughter that he quote-unquote loved, and he was grieving. Again, crazy because he decided he wanted to go ahead and be a stepdaddy anyway, but hey, that's another story for another day. But Maria didn't just scam Brett emotionally and financially. She leveraged the court system to silence him. And after the paternity test proved he wasn't the father, she then slapped him with a gag order. But Brett is done playing quiet, apparently. Quote, "I was tired of being silent," he says. "Narcissists want you to keep quiet. That's how they stay in control." Now, obviously, he's speaking out, online, in interviews, and on the record, because paternity fraud is real, it's devastating, and still wildly under-acknowledged in both legal frameworks and cultural conversations. And there is some merit to that, to some degree. The idea that paternity fraud is not something that is carefully scrutinized in our legal system is gobsmackingly disappointing, in my personal opinion, simply because it is very common. You think it's not common, but it's very common. People get their babies snatched up in the hospital, in, you know, where the incubator, wherever they're holding their children, you know, beyond the eyes of the parent, and, you know, before preconception, children getting snatched up and switched out, babies, seed out here getting hijacked and inseminated voluntarily. It's the wild, wild west out here. So Brett's goal is to push for mandatory DNA testing at birth, not as an insult to women, but to prevent situations like this. Now, if a man is confident he's the father, he should have no problem proving it, he says. If a woman resists that idea, it's a red flag. And I wholeheartedly agree. Fellas, let me tell you something right now. Again, going back to this, what is the moral of this story? The moral of this story is, before you have that child, or when you have that child, regardless of how you want to go about it, be sure you are the father. Obviously, use protection so you don't get anyone pregnant, and to avoid STDs, right? Clearly. But more so than that, you want to ensure that you are the father, because paternity fraud, we have now learned, and something you should have already known, but it's okay if you didn't, right? Especially if you don't have kids, you're not going to know this stuff. But as we have now learned, paternity fraud is not only easy, it's not something that's highly scrutinized in our legal system. So you can get caught up if you're not careful. So guys, I don't care if the woman's mad. I don't care if that's your soulmate. I don't care if that is the woman you have loved since you were a junior in high school and you had the acne out here looking like a freako. I don't care. Get the child tested, because you could end up like Brett. Let me know what you think in the comments about this story, because this one is a wild one. And once again, if you are tuned into this via podcast, wherever you are, let me know your thoughts, whether in the comments, on a post, or whatever the case may be. But that is a crazy ass story, man. Listen, the break is coming just in time, because after reading all that and listening to all that, I gotta say, there's something to be said about not only paternity fraud, but, you know, just the general idea of women out here really just trying to get you because they want to get you. And that is the simplest way I could say it, but it's so profound, I think, in the way that I'm putting it, because, you know, at the end of the day, for some women, you know, there's all types of women out there, and I'll say this before we go to break. There's all types of women out there, right? There's tons of flavors of women, personalities, characteristics, qualities, whatever the case may be. But what I'm saying is, it seems like they fall into a large majority where they are like passive with their attraction. You know, like they might actually, like, you know, if they're you know, attracted to you, they might be in love with you, want a relationship with you, yada yada yada, but they're passive, right? They're not like obsessive, trying to destroy you because they can't have all of you, etc., etc. And then you have the other camp of women who are just absolutely insane and try to pull off shit like this. And personally speaking, it feels like there's a lot more of these crash out type of women than there are the calm, passive ones. And I'm not saying this like there's reform. I've got no hopes for humanity. Personally speaking, I think we're all going to hell in a handbasket, and it's just a slow degradation of society that we're all witnessing. I'm not saying that because of anyone's political or, you know, moral stance. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, all things considered, so many different opinions, we're not ever going to get along. That's just my point. Listen, we could try and fight for it all we want, but I just think that's the case. We're never going to get along. But anyway,